Hey, what up, everybody? This is Stevie Breach coming to you. A big video talking about a big fight that's coming up tomorrow night on free TV. Bellator 138 going to be live on Spike TV, headlined by Kimbo going up against Shamrock. Two guys that I know a lot about because of two different backgrounds. Kimbo Slice, I think everybody was taken over by Kimbo Slice, taking over the internet with his sort of backyard fight videos of just basically him showing up in backyards and challenging anybody to try and fight him. And this guy just was supreme and didn't seem like anybody in the world was ever going to be able to get in a shot on him. Shamrock, came to the WWF when it looked like UFC was running out of money and was going out of business. This was, of course, before UFC was sort of saved by Dana White and, of course, their reality show, The Ultimate Fighter, which was put on Spike TV after Monday Night Raw, and that gave a really big boost to the company and really opened up the doors to them getting television and them really growing their sport. But Shamrock came into WWF. He had a good, long, memorable career if you were watching at that time. He was really right there in the Intercontinental Championship title hunt. If you're somebody who follows the Montreal Screwjob a lot, he was the guy that Bret Hart was saying, I'm not going to lose the belt to Shawn, but I'll lose the belt to either Shamrock or Austin. Shamrock was brought into WWF, to have a big feud against Bret Hart. It never was able to happen. It was supposed to be, the best wrestler in the world going up against the best fighter in the world. And Shamrock, for almost all of his time in WWF, even though he won some matches and he lost some matches and he never really became a true main eventer. I can only remember him main eventing one pay-per-view, and that was the DX show when it was Shawn Michaels against Shamrock. But he had a lot of great Intercontinental title runs. He was a tag champion with the Big Boss Man for a while, and he was a guy that was inside of the the corporation that really handled business. One of the real big fights that I think he ever had was that he was announced he was going to take on Stone Cold Steve Austin in the main event of Monday Night Raw one week. And I really believed that, Austin was a bad motherfucker, but he's not going to beat Shamrock. Both of these guys have gone down different roads in MMA. Basically, Kimbo Slice is somebody that, with one loss, bankrupted a company, Elite XC, which was on CBS back in 2008. This fight was supposed to happen on CBS on live free primetime television. Elite XC was able to secure a deal with CBS, which was supposed to be a real big boost to this small company. And before the fight was supposed to happen of Shamrock versus Kimbo Slice, I believe it was the day of the fight in training, Shamrock suffered a large cut over his eye. He had to be pulled from the show. Shamrock and his brother were both trying to have his brother fill in for him, but they ended up finding somebody from the show that they thought was going to be an easy opponent. Seth Petrozelli, who basically filled into the fight and knocked out Kimbo Slice in less than 15 seconds. Kimbo Slice did go on to have some sort of a career in MMA after this, but he hasn't really fought MMA in 5 years. He hasn't had an MMA fight since 2010. Of course, he was a part of the 2009's Ultimate Fighter, where he lost and wasn't able to go on, but he did have a UFC fight at UFC 113 in 2010, which he did lose. From there, he sort of took up boxing and did boxing through most of 2011 and 2012. He always was undefeated, but I guess there was no money in it because he never really continued on after a fight in 2012. But it seems like a long time for somebody to be sitting on the sideline and not taking fights. Shamrock is a guy that runs his mouth a lot about being one of the best fighters in the world. I don't think he really realizes what his age is and that, he's climbing up the ranks. At 51 years old, he's going to be climbing in to the octagon to fight at Bellator one more time. And I just hope that this guy doesn't embarrass himself. I know that one thing is that the Shamrock's fighting style basically is he's going to try to dance around Kimbo as long as he can to tire him out and get him to the point where he can slap a submission on and be able to get a victory. You know, Shamrock hasn't had the best of luck in MMA. It looks like he's lost 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of his last 9 fights. Even, you know, Shamrock, his last fight was in 2010. I know that Shamrock had a suspension. I believe it was for steroids at one time. So, you know, Bellator is sort of taking almost anybody in at this point because, honestly, you know, with UFC really taking off and having so many fights and so many names out there, Bellator being able to bring in names from the past. You know, the last fight with Tito Ortiz, 2.2 million people, you know, tuned in to watch that fight. So, you know, Bellator is going to be able to pull numbers with this one. I'm just hoping that the retirement MMA home is not going to miss Kimbo or Shamrock in this one. Honestly, in my opinion, when it comes down to it, I don't want to see either one of these guys lose because, you know, how much I like both of these guys, and I sort of have a special place for both of them. But in my opinion, I'm going to take Kimbo to get the win here. You know, Shamrock was a damn good fighter in his day, but at 51, you know, he's got 10 years on Kimbo, and I think Kimbo, he gets one punch in. I think that one punch might be able to send Shamrock down to the mat and remind him why he hasn't had a fight in 5 years.